Welcome to Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 308, Compliancy Group, HIPAA done right. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your customers to use. This is a must-have tool with features like on-demand for your break-fix customers and unattended for managed services. You can do automatic repairs with the auto repair built-in software, and it will save you time and money when you are supporting your customers. Check it out for a free trial at instanthousecall.com. Use the offer code PODNUTS. And also by FreshBooks, the simple pain-free invoicing solution for freelancers and small business owners. For a 30-day free trial, just go to freshbooks.com/podnuts. Enter podnuts in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Let me introduce the co-host today. We have none other than John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. John, how you doing?
Hey, Jeff, I'm John Wick ready, baby. Let's go.
All right. And we also have joining us as a brand new guest today, Mark Haskelson from the Compliancy Group. Mark, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you for letting me join you on this Sunday.
It's awesome to have you. I'm glad you were able to join on a Sunday. Not everybody can do that, so that's really cool.
I checked in with the family.
Good. All right, John, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to you. And why don't you give us a tip or story that we could learn from?
All right. So I have a good little story, but I'm going to leave that on the CRP group. It's probably the story is related to I needed some help, and boy, did the community or the members really help me out. So if you're not in the group, this is my little advertisement for that. You should be in that group because it was a huge help and probably more than paid for itself with that big $1 a month that it costs to be in there, or vaguely that much. But this week I bring my regular my regular group of tips. So let me just say that. My first tip is a little tip that I didn't know about. I'm a huge Snap AV distributor that distributes Rackness products. And I found something on their support page that I never knew about that's called their troubleshooting page. And I'll put a link in the show notes and all that, but it has some great tips on all their products, from setting up VPNs to using RDP to some cool features that maybe are a little bit undocumented about their DVR platform and all that. But that is the Snap AV troubleshooting page. So I'll link to that. The next little tip I have is I was browsing on Reddit for something else and ran into the thread, and then 2 hours later realized that I was still on Reddit reading the same thread. It can common happen, but the big portion of this topic was must-read books on Reddit. So it was all technology books. I'll put a cool link in there. A lot of the books we've discussed here, but a lot of times that's a good topic on the CRP group. And there were a lot of titles here that I've read already and some that I've added to my list. For those of you doing SNMP with your either RMM tools or trying to get into SNMP, Simple Network Monitoring Protocol, when you do that, you need something that are called MIBs. And to test MIBs, you need some sort of software to do that. And there's a cool little program by Manage Engine called the free SNMP MIB browser that I didn't know about, that I just stumbled upon, which has been very cool and very helpful in my journey with SNMP and some new products that we brought on. So I'll put a link to that. If you do not listen to Steve Gibson over on his podcast with Leo Laporte, he brought up a really cool service called File Mail on one of his last shows. So I just wanted to share that here because, I'm sure everybody listens to us before Steve. So and may only listen to Steve if they finish all of our podcasts first. So filemail.com, link in the show notes. A couple more. Windows Firewall Control. If you've never used that, Malwarebytes bought it a few years or about a year ago. This is a cool little product to control the Windows Firewall on your desktop. And if you've ever done that, you'll notice that the interface, it's not the easiest in the world to migrate through or work through, but the cool features in this is that you could take one endpoint, set up the firewall how you want it, export the configuration, and then quickly import it to the rest of the endpoints on your network. So I thought that was really cool. And the last tip that I would give is don't forget about TechCon Unplugged coming up here. Link in the show notes. I have my tickets already, and I'm already looking forward to it. Thanks, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Great tips as always, and always the great show notes taker, giving all those wonderful links for everybody to be able to click on and get to the stuff that we talk about, which is cool, because as everybody knows, if it was up to me, it wouldn't be. Um, appreciate it, John. All right, Mark, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you. And if you have a tip or story or something that you would like to share with the audience, now would be the time. And it could be on anything.
Well, I got to admit, there was a lot of tips there a few minutes ago. So I'll try to do one or two of hopefully of value. Tips. If you are a big reader, there is a book called Freakonomics. Okay. And it sounds like, hey, what does that have to do with running my MSP? But oddly enough, it is a book about the unintended consequences. So when you think you have a great idea and you're, hey, let's do this, let's hire that person, let's put this piece of technology in play. It is an interesting lesson, and make sure you look at it from all angles, because often what looks like a great idea, once it starts running, can really bite you in the rear end. On a lighter note, let's see, one of the first big presentations I ever had to do in the MSP space, I unfortunately got stuck in Detroit. And believe it or not, my bags made to meeting. Unfortunately, I walked in literally, not that uncommon. Unfortunately, I was about 15 minutes late to my own presentation. I did get there, though, and I did speak. And yes, I was dressed properly, and yet, no, my fly was not down. So these are a few things you can be happy about while speaking on stage. But thank you very much for letting me join you guys today.
I'll appreciate it, as always. It's yeah.
Was that an ASCII conference?
No, actually, it was actually a Robin Robbins conference,
okay.
And I was I'm not, to no exaggeration, I missed my connection. Right, no one would hold the flight. When I got there the next morning, I realized they had held the flight for my bags, not for me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, how's that for irritation?
Well, it's a wonderful thing, because I know a lot of people will complain and say that things don't work out for me, or this happened or that happened, and they come up with a bunch of excuses of why they couldn't do something. And I'll say that there's two ways to look at it. There's not a whole lot you can do about things that go wrong. All you can do is keep moving forward. So that's a great tip on, hey, even though you're 15 minutes late, you still gave a great presentation.
Yep.
And you probably were pretty fired up because all the things that were happening, I'm sure.
Well, you had to be focused at that point, considering all the other things that have gone wrong. Yeah, you just have to be ready. And I think all of us in the running of our businesses, things always go wrong. Right. The real the measure is how well you handle it and how you overcome it. Not that I'm a big fan of, okay, remain calm. We will figure this out. Everyone don't go crazy.
Very good. So one of the things I was thinking about is people will often ask the question of what things can I do in my business? And as I've been thinking about this over the past few days, in listening to some other podcasts and getting some ideas about just running business and doing things and selling a product or service, which is what most of us do, a lot of people will go, hey, would this be a good product or service to sell? Maybe it's maybe it's cameras, security cameras. It could be whatever, with the DVR backups and all that kind of stuff. There's many things that people ask about. Well, here's kind of how you measure that. You measure that by finding at least one person that's willing to pay you to do that. And if you can find at least one person that's willing to pay you to do that, then maybe that's a feasible product that you can actually use in your business on a regular basis. But if, because I've heard people will come up with all kinds of different ideas on what they want to do. Anything from a retail shop, and we kind of heard some things last week where sometimes it looks cool to order certain products or services that we think our clients will want, but then years later, stuff is sitting on a shelf. You don't want to do that. So a lot of the times, the way to get around that is just by going out there, finding that person. Because if there's one person willing to pay for it, you can bet your bottom dollar there will be many people that are willing to pay for it. And then that's something that you can offer. Plus, it's kind of cool that you can start off in the beginning and maybe, use that one person as a test case scenario to do what it is that they want done. And then you can also figure out whether or not you want to do that, whether it's something you like to do, because if it's not, maybe you need to move on to something else. So
Well, one of the things that I am a very strong believer in, and whether it's an MSP, break fix, or just about any business, a lot of us get caught up with, well, let me say it differently. I think that there is great benefit in specializing or focusing on a particular niche, right? And to your point, whether it's, you're starting to add AV to or VoIP or in our case, compliance, security, whatever it may be, I think a lot of the folks I talk with, they come across, they hear something is good and they want to go after it, right? And often when I say, and listen, I've done 5 startups, so I'm just, I'm a 20-person company. I know the pain of keeping the lights on, etc. But what I found is if you step back and look at what is, especially whether it's geography or your own domain expertise, if you look and see something out there because you're interested in it, the other one I look at it is how many people in my territory, if you want to call it, are available to use this. And I get into this a lot with MSPs around healthcare. Their experience has been with, let's say, dentists, okay, which is nothing bad, but they, let's say, are often unaware that 60% of the market, okay, is actually the vendors who serve them. So if you specialize in, like I said, I can give a lot of statistics around healthcare, but you can do that with lawyers, accountants, manufacturing. Pick the thing you love, pick the thing you can add value, build a solution set around it, and run with it.
Very nice. I like that. That's a good wrap up to that. That's good advice there. Just you got to sometimes step back and think, and I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of people are into putting fires out all the time, and it's like, hey, just calm down. So yeah, I try not to. I've been through several businesses myself, and one of the things people always say to me is, how do you not lose your mind? And I'm like, you have 2 ways of looking at it. You either roll over on your back and wet on yourself, or you get up and you keep moving. Those are the only 2 choices. That's all I know. So,
I think you have to be almost a little schizophrenic as a business owner. You have to be able to be, you have to have a split personality, right? There is, runner of business. There's, family member. There's, the industry stuff you got to do. And yeah, there are just some times where you're like, listen, there's nothing I can do about that problem. So let me focus on just getting through today.
Exactly. Very good. All right, let's take a quick break, and we're going to talk about something John talked about real quick before we get into our main topic, and that would be TechCon Unplugged, September 20th through the 22nd, 2019, in John's backyard, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, here's what you're going to get for the low price of $199 is you're going to get all your meals and snacks at the event. This is Friday night for the get together. You're going to sit all day Saturday and all day Sunday. So there'll be snacks and breakfast and lunch both those days, plus dinner Saturday night at Dave & Buster's, along with a game card to enjoy the activities. Now, if you've never been to a Dave & Buster's before, this is just a place where we're going to have a separate room where we can hang out, talk about whatever we want to talk about, life, business, technology, whatever. And if you want, you can go play games or whatever. So it's going to be a great environment to keep everybody together under one roof and keep the conference going for this entire weekend. And that's our goal, is to take this community and bring it together and keep us together. So that's the goal of this conference. But on top of that, outside of everything else, you're also going to get good, wholesome IT content with community invested vendors. Now, the reason I say that is we only really want community invested vendors because they're invested in the community. They're invested into helping you grow your business so that they can also grow their business. Again, it's a scenario where you want that win-win. You want the companies that your vendors that are taking care of you to make money so they can keep continuing to do what they do. And then also for the community, obviously IT business owners, to make money so they can continue to do what they do, working together. Go to techconunplugged.com. You can get your tickets today. Rooms are $102 a night. Go ahead and get those. There's a link for that. And if I believe it's United Airlines, there's also a discount code for the airline, anywhere from 2 to 10%. So if you fly United, I believe it's United, but don't quote me on that. But
it is.
Okay, thank you.
And another big thing is, Grand Rapids, my hometown, it's not a little town, but we don't have that big town problem too, where you're going to pay $20 or $40 a night parking. So you're $102 a night. That's it.
Boom. Nice.
So, okay.
Very, very nice. Yeah. And it'll be, like you said, it's going to be a great time just to get together and, share with the community. And we actually have, I think our second meeting tonight. We're getting together and talking about the topics and stuff that we're going to bring to you come this September. So, for a lot of people, they're going to go, oh man, September's a long way away. For us that are kind of putting it together, we're like going, whew, yeah, I feel a little bit behind the 8 ball already. But no, we're going to bring great content. It's going to be a grand old time. And we got a great panel of people, John Dubinsky, Paco LeBron, Marvin B, and Mike Smith are all a part of that group. And so we're going to be coming up with the content to help you guys grow your business. And that's what we're here for. And just have a place to chat and talk and hang out together. Again, TechConUnplugged.com. Check it out today. All right. So our main topic for today is obviously we have Mark here from the Compliancy Group, and their motto is on their website, HIPAA done right. So Mark, I'm going to kick it over to you and kind of let you start off the conversation with what is HIPAA and why should we care?
Hey, before Mark, hang on, Mark, let me jump in really quick. I just want to be full disclosure that I am a Compliancy Group customer, a satisfied Compliancy Group customer. So thanks for being here, Mark. Okay.
Well, no, I appreciate it. We hopefully my team's doing the right thing and taking good care of you.
They are. They are.
All right. So without going into the boring, why HIPAA exists, the easiest thing and probably the most profound thing I can say is compliance in general. I happen to believe I'm very heavily focused on HIPAA, but compliance in general justifies the security services of an MSP. Okay, so why you should be listening is if you have existing clients where you're doing security work, or you're looking to expand either into incorporate new clients, maybe if you're involved with monthly recurring revenue, you want to build on top of that with your current clients, or if you just want to be more profitable. Compliance truly justifies that, and there's a lot of data that goes with that, and my pleasure to go into it. But that's why you should listen, right? This is an opportunity for you to expand, grow, and make more money, and better serve. And going back to your original question, right? One of the mistakes I see often in businesses is we get caught up, and MSPs are not unique, right? We all find that we get caught up in trying to provide a service where often we forget that our clients have a bigger problem. So in the case of HIPAA, which is a law, it's a federal law that applies to, and this is another gift that keeps on giving, especially for the MSP community. HIPAA law actually applies to about 7.5 million organizations. Okay, so it's 26% of the U.S. economy. So if you were looking for something that most likely there are many folks in your town, in your geography that you currently serve, that you can develop a specialty or a vertical around, HIPAA and healthcare gives that to you. Now, it kind of gets even better in that if you look at what is the SMB sector, you have 80% of healthcare is a small and mid-sized business, and it gets one step even better in that if you look at ransomware attacks, 88% of ransomware attacks are perpetrated against a small and mid-sized medical practice. So these people need you, they want you. But the only one piece of advice I would say is don't make the mistake of, there is a hierarchy in the world of healthcare. So not all medical specialties are created equal, i.e. a dentist is actually a relatively easy degree in the medical community. So they tend not to be the wealthiest of them. Whereas if you start looking at some of the specialties going up the ladder, let's say an ophthalmological surgeon, is a very hot market right now. They think of what they do for a living. They use lasers. Okay, I can do the lasers, right? All right, but because they are involved with lasers, they understand that they need technology, and they are more than willing to pay top dollar. I mean, we see $175, $200 a seat monthly recurring revenue in that community, and they are happy to pay it because you solved a bigger problem, and the bigger problem is HIPAA. Right, not just the security of their platforms, but the much more comprehensive things, which is HIPAA law.
Very good. I think a lot of times people will look at their customer, and I think the biggest complaint when it comes to HIPAA is that a lot of times the customer, and maybe if you're looking at the lower end tiers, they don't want to pay for this stuff because they're like, yeah, I'll pay for it if I get busted or whatever. John, now you go through this stuff all the time with even with your dental offices, correct?
Well, using the compliancy group and other stuff that we've done, it kind of opened our eyes. And with a lot of their guidance, making sure that we had some of the, let's just say, documentation in place. One, since we service what are called covered entities under HIPAA, we need to be HIPAA compliant. So we use the compliancy group. There's no such thing as certification in HIPAA, but we use them to get HIPAA done right for us. But it also led to some other things where we created some paperwork. One, we used some of the paperwork they gave us to make sure we had business associated agreements in place with our customers. And it also helped us to retain a different lawyer to get what we're calling our term sheet, but just to make it clear with our customers that we're not responsible for their HIPAA compliance. So, and all that came from working with and dealing with the compliancy group. So, and then my communication with them is Mark and Joe and some other guys over at the compliance group. We sent out documentation, an email, and a letter to our customers saying, hey, we're using the compliance group. It'd be a good idea for you to use the compliance group. And oh, by the way, here's a term sheet that says we're not responsible for your compliance. We'll help you achieve your compliance because obviously we're the IT group and we want to fit into the puzzle of HIPAA and solve that problem for you to meet your compliance. But there's so much more involved. As IT geeks, we get so focused on, hey, we'll put a firewall in and we're done. Yay, that was easy, HIPAA compliant, But there's so much more as far as documentation and on and on and on and annual stuff. It's not a one-time thing. It's not HIPAA one and done. So, and the great thing about that is even before I have engaged with the compliancy group, I felt pretty confident in my HIPAA knowledge. I'd spent a lot of time listening to like David Sims and, other guys and stuff that we have been exposed to at other conferences and, have been trying to do this myself. But then, once you engage with somebody like the compliancy group and they start walking you through the process, you suddenly realize that, wow, you have to have all these things in place. The documentation is extremely important in all of this because at some point you might get that dreaded, it's kind of like getting that IRS audit letter. You might get that dreaded caller letter or something bad might actually happen. So you want to make sure you have what you need. And the nice thing about it is through the process, you have a coach with the compliancy group that walks you through this. You have we did it bi-weekly, but you can do it monthly. You could even do it quarterly. It all depends on how quick you want to get through the process and how demanding your process to reach quote unquote compliance is. But I brought my wife with me, who is my office manager, quote, basically runs the business. I just do the tech work. And she didn't know anything about HIPAA. So by the time we were done, she was asking the questions that I initially asked. And what needs to be in place. And then we had some place to go to get those answered, or she did. So as my compliance officer, Sarah, she's engaged even a lot more with the compliancy group than I am. So, and then now we finished our last meeting. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we meet, there's a lawyer at the end. We finished it all up. But guess what? We're going to start again come next year because we got to redo the BAAs. We got to go through the vendor certifications, and it's ongoing. Training is ongoing throughout the year, and the compliancy group brings all this sort of to the forefront with they have an application called the Guard that kind of brings this off sort of forward and kind of puts it in your face to say, hey, this is what you need to be doing ongoing. It's I kind of relate it to like collections. And I think dental offices or any medical, I do a lot of dental and ortho, so I that's where this comes into play for me. But, collections is an ongoing thing for them. And there's somebody in the office that's dedicated to collections at least some part of the week. Well, now you need to have somebody dedicated to HIPAA, maybe some part of the month at least, to, keep this stuff ongoing. And I think I babbled enough, Mark.
No, listen, thank you. Anytime, you're welcome to step right in. It's fantastic. What I would say to kind of put a little more, let's say, tactical for the average MSP, what happens is, and what you're referring to is there are most organizations, most MSPs are doing what's called are doing the security risk assessment, which is 2 parts of a 6-part required audits every year. Okay, and this is why it becomes, kind of there's 2 points I'll make. One is you're doing a great job when you're doing the security risk assessment, the asset and device, and the technical audit. The problem is your client is responsible for all 4 audits, and then as he was alluding to, there is policies, procedures, there's training, and for better or for worse, the U.S. government, when they do fine, the average fine is $1.5 million. So it is not exactly a little thing anymore, right? And enforcement currently, the failure rate runs about 90% or higher. Okay, so the folks that believe they have what in place, and actually the position I have, I run the Business Application Advisory Council for CompTIA. I'm the chair of it, and what we focus on is trying to get better tools out to the MSPs. Right, but one of the things that I try to say why you should be engaging with HIPAA compliance, separate of what I do for a living, is in the end, in the law itself, it mandates encryption, backup, secure messaging, and monitoring and auditing. The problem is if all you do is the security risk assessment, the majority of those justifications are actually tied into the privacy and administrative protocols audits. Okay, and this is why there are a lot of ways to do HIPAA compliance, and we're very proud of a rather unique approach that Compliancy Group has. And our approach is, and to give you a little history of Compliancy Group and how my partners and I started. Originally, we did large-scale audits, and what we originally built was a tool for us to do an audit, which was fantastic. Okay, the problem, and you see this across a lot of the tools that are available in the market today. That's great in the hands of an expert, but your client still has all these other things they have to do. Figure if I was to show you a picture, doing just the security component is about 20% of the problem for your client, critical 20%. Okay, and I would argue that I can't give my seal of compliance, or I can't be a third party and verify and validate an organization's ability to protect their information unless they are also secure. And this is one of the relationships why we have such tight relationships with the MSP community is at the end of the day, I have over 70,000 organizations that what John was referring to in my compliance coaches. Those coaches throughout the conversation are asking these small, mid-sized organizations, who is doing your technical work? And even if they say it themselves, or they say their nephew, or if they have outsourced IT, we start going into, well, what are you doing about all these other things? And 9 out of 10 times, they're then asking us, please introduce us to someone who can solve this larger problem for us, right? So in the end, by getting involved with compliance and HIPAA, the reason for HIPAA is separate of the size of the market. There's just, it's a gift that keeps on giving. You have enforcement is way up, failure rate is high. And in the end, if you help your clients get involved with this, it is going to mandate they use your services. Right? And now instead of, let's say, just providing firewall and walking away, you are now getting involved with a lot more. Therefore, you can charge a lot more. We have a lot of the MSPs we work with are actually using us in a way that we didn't expect. And probably one of the interesting ways that they're using compliance and our seal of compliance is to go in and verify or validate or justify the work that they've done in the past, right? When they said their client had to do this, they're now having us come in and say, look, yes, absolutely, that was what was required. That is why, healthcare is a protected arena. The data is highly coveted. It's worth 10 times more than banking data. And let's be realistic, the small and mid-sized shop is, I'm sorry, the firewall you got with the modem you got from the cable company is not sufficient, okay? The second thing that you start seeing is a lot of the folks are using us to be able to go back into their existing clients to justify more advanced solutions, right? And from that, so listen, in the end, you just get to point to, as I was saying, you get a compliance coach on our side. The way we deploy is that we don't expect you to be compliance folks. We expect you guys to be experts at what is security and IT. So this isn't just a one-off, tech call. We try to get it done in 8 half-hour calls, right? But it is not uncommon for us to spend 20 or 30 half-hour meetings with a client to make sure they are compliant. So 1, we don't charge for it. Two, you as the MSP really get credit for it because you're the one who brought us in, right? And whether you bundle it into your services or you treat it as a different line item, those are lots of different pricing models. But it really, one, lets you justify what you're doing. Two, go in and put in more advanced security services. Three, which is kind of interesting, a lot of our MSPs are sharing that they're getting greater efficiencies out of it. So therefore, it's dramatic. It's affecting their profitability because now with the advanced services, it's easier for them to support their client base, which is kind of how we ended up. In the story of Compliancy Group is very similar to an MSP. About 5 years after we started, we realized that we could not grow, right? I couldn't hire another compliance officer. I couldn't hire any more staff. So we expanded the tool to be what it is today, which is, think of it as like QuickBooks, okay? So not only is it the tool that you and your client use to audit, it's also the tool that your client then you and your client then use to manage the complexity of compliance going forward. So all of the audits, policies, procedures, the training, the keeping track of business associates, technical due diligences, incident management. For example, one of the areas that a lot of the folks forget about, what was a simple trouble ticket to you, a ransomware, a malware on a device, is actually considered a meaningful breach, which means the doctor had to report it within 60 business days, or they are negligent, and that average running price for that is about 300 grand in fines. So you come off looking very, very smart and helping your clients address the larger issues. And the one other point I'll make, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time, don't think of just covered entities. Okay, covered entities are doctors' offices. One of the biggest opportunities in healthcare, okay, is actually not the doctors. It's all the vendors that now, under the law, and the law has been in place for about 3-4 years, all the vendors that have to be compliant. So you as an MSP, yes, but remember that accountant, the lawyer, the billing company, the shredding company, the hosting service, the transcription firm, about 60% of healthcare, and this is a 5 to 7 million organization market, are also need to be compliant. But the reason why it's so valuable for the MSP to provide it is being compliant. If you are a billing firm, for example, you cannot do business with a covered entity unless you are HIPAA compliant. Okay, the law prevents you from doing so. So if you are going in and offering a broader set of services, and in this case, our seal of compliance, which is, yes, as a third party, we are verifying and validating, and it's a very important part of the value proposition that we think helps differentiate our clients, our partners and clients. Yeah, we've had, it is not uncommon. Probably the biggest story I got is, one of my MSPs called me and he said because of the seal on his site, he won $1 million contract. Okay, and it's actually we have a bunch of case studies on our website that you know, whether you believe me or not, you're welcome to go in there and actually talk to the folks and speak to our clients and see how we do this. In the end, we do all the work, you get paid.
And that is what I would call a win-win situation. Now, Mark, a lot of people look at this as a burden. I think I said at the beginning of the show, I want nothing to do with HIPAA, but that's for my own reasons. But here's the thing. A lot of the stuff that came about because of HIPAA was stuff that we should have been doing for all of our clients anyways, it seems like to me. That just a regular common sense, let's take care of our clients. But now, especially with the Compliancy Group, we have that justification, like you're talking about, to say, listen, it's not just this is what we should be doing. This is what you have to do at this point.
And most folks, and especially out of fairness to the MSP community, right? You were brought in under the technical and security side, right? What has evolved in the market, though, if you think of, let's say, the threats that exist today that compared to what are the past, the unfortunate reality is 76% of the time, you did everything right. The MSP put in great technology. The problem was the human element screwed it up. Okay, so really, one of the ways to think of compliance, and a great way to explain it to whether they are a covered entity or a doctor's office or a business associate, which is a vendor, is that, there's all sorts of data and studies around this. By the concept of compliance or HIPAA was that once a year you look at your organization across 3 primary areas: security. Okay, we get that. privacy, and administrative. And that in looking at those things, what you're doing is you're trying to understand your weaknesses and to fix them. So to your point, what you're saying is just focusing on the IT side and not realize, or let's say, not giving a little bit of attention or love to what is the other side, you're leaving you and your clients vulnerable, right? And think about it. One of the things that I often say when I'm speaking to large groups is, think of the definition of security, okay? If you ask your client the definition of security, they are not going to turn around and start talking about endpoint protection, okay? They're going to talk about the Webster Dictionary. I wanted peace of mind. I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel as if my business was protected. And that's exactly what they want from an MSP. And they're willing to pay when you stay away from the line items and services and stick to, I understand your problems and I'm going to make your problems go away so you can confidently focus on your business. Your client will stop arguing about that extra $4 a month per seat and stick to, yes, I get to sleep at night or I get to do business with my clients because my MSP protected me. And what's happening with the threats, whether it's ransomware, whether it's, one statistic that I really like, and these are all statistics that are coming from CompTIA. These are industry standards, right? 1 in 10 people will lose a smart device in a given year, okay? Which means unless you had backup and encryption, you're sunk, right? Now, hey, if you then take a look at that 26% of the time, it was actually somebody at the office who turned off some security protocol, your monitoring and auditing becomes really, really important. This all is HIPAA law. It's mandated. Okay. Last thing is they have to have secure messaging. And in the world of compliance, and healthcare is a big market, but you can talk about this with financial services, manufacturing. They cannot just be emailing or slacking or IMing or whatever, texting information that needs to be secure, and they need the assistance of an MSP to make sure that's being done correctly. And I truly believe that it is a great opportunity for you guys to step out of, let's say, your comfort zone. And as we were saying, our coaches will do all the work. You just basically got to keep doing the security work you do. We will explain all the rest.
Well, I think too, from a standpoint of, there's basically 2 types of companies in the world. There's those that have been breached and those who have not been breached yet. Those are the only 2 types. Everybody is vulnerable. And the reality is this stuff is going to happen no matter what your security is at. So obviously the more levels of things that you have in place in order to protect that client, obviously is going to help them sleep better at the end of the day. And then you can a lot of times remediate after that to take care of those situations so that it's not, and I go back to this story, but I remember, and this was years and years ago, way before, 2008 and whatnot. This was probably back in the early 2000s. But I remember when a company had basically had all their mortgage files and they just threw everything in garbage bags out in the back dumpster. Everybody's social security, names, addresses, all that stuff was there. You had access to it. And they were like going, the company's sitting there going, they're just making money and not even thinking about the consequences of, oh yeah, that probably should be secure data that we don't want anybody getting their hands on. Well, now in this digital age, it's gotten 100 times worse.
Oh, I see it all the time. And what happens a lot of times, people do this out of naivety. They just didn't know. Like a lot of times they truly didn't, they hire a firm to destroy documentation, but they don't realize, and there's actually, it's about a $750,000 fine for an organization that they wanted to have a bunch of x-rays destroyed. Okay. Unfortunately, the firm they hired, they didn't get a business associate agreement. That firm didn't understand the requirements to do this correct. It was a $750,000 fine. But I tell you what, one of the other benefits, though, and let's, because we can go very deep into all the scary, the world is they're gonna get you, right? They're coming at you. But there's actually lots of very serious positives. Like, so for example, if you are, the data proves that if you are HIPAA compliant, which means you understand your risks, right? You fix them, that's great. But then the policies and procedures, although sound very dry, in reality, what you're doing is you're giving your staff a clear playbook of how to serve your clients. right? So one of the things that happens, and we get involved with a lot of private equity, whether it's either in the healthcare space or in the business space, where they will score a business and how they want to pay for it based on their compliance. Because what they see is compliant organizations have themselves buttoned up. They then, their employees are happier, and they understand how to better serve their patients or clients. So for example, we see, there was a study we did with doctors.com where organizations that showed the seal of compliance and were HIPAA compliant had a 17% increase in their patient loyalty. Okay.
Wow.
Right. So it's not hocus pocus. It is an expense, right? It's not directly related to revenue. But for the average, whether it's a covered entity or a doctor's office, there's very strong proof that your staff, if they are not well informed of how to serve your patients, they make mistakes and they piss them off. Right. And then they just, patients don't come back. Now, it works the same thing for an MSP, right? If your staff, like, for example, the first IT organization or MSP to get fined was last year, and they got fined $650,000. Okay. And the issue was a tech went on site, was doing some work, for whatever reason, emailed himself on his own phone, okay, on his iPhone. Now that in itself is not necessarily anything bad, but what happened was later he went out and he lost his phone. It might have been at Dave & Buster's, so be careful. Dave & Buster's is bad. No. Anyways, ultimately he goes out, he has a beer, he loses his phone. The problem was why they were fined $650,000, which is a pretty hefty fine, was the government said it was negligence. And what they meant by that was, how could the organization have not ever asked that did their staff, now, by the way, encrypted, secure was not in question at all. It was, how come you never looked at the way your employees were working, the administrative components of what you're doing, to make sure that they would know that if they were on site, that the information they're working with is a confidential thing and therefore should not have been sent to his phone. Okay, so that's what now in the end, the official guidance was failure to do adequate risk assessments and failure to have policies and procedures. Now, you may have noticed as I went through that, it had nothing to do with encryption and nothing to do with technology. Okay, it was considered negligence for failing to even understand that you should have looked at that. And those are the kind of things that, as an MSP, you don't want to focus on those things. You want to focus on the tech. That by working with an organization like ours, our coaches will hold the hand of the client, step them through all of those things, make sure that they have those things buttoned up, so that ultimately you're more secure, they're more secure. And what I really like about it is the fact that, yes, it's really nice when I can help my partners make a lot more money.
That is very well put.
And I want to point out something too, if I can, Jeff, just based on what you said and what Mark's been delivering here is, the first thing you said is, I don't want anything to do with HIPAA. The problem is now that if we look to what Mark said, and let's look at the Target breach. The Target breach had, it's not medically related, it's not HIPAA related, but it teaches us a good lesson that Target didn't have anything to do with their breach. It was their air conditioning vendor. So now when we start looking at HIPAA, a lot of guys will say, well, I just won't do any medical clients. Well, the problem is that, well, now, okay, so you're going to do the shredding company that works for the medical clients. Well, now you're going to be tied in at least somewhat, or all these other service companies that deal with medical clients that are now have to be business associates because they work with covered entities. And now you're the security provider for these companies. Keep in mind, you're going to get involved. So you're going to have at least a minimal level of HIPAA knowledge, if not or engage somebody like the Compliancy Group to reach some sort of HIPAA compliance in order to work with all these companies, especially if you deal with lawyers or anything to do with maybe payroll or transcription or anything that handles any sort of medical information.
That's a good point too, John. And the thing is, a lot of people, if you look at things like the services we pay for now, a lot of us probably back in the day could do our own taxes. Now, should you do your own taxes? Absolutely not, because I don't know exactly what the tax law is. Actually, my accountant doesn't know what the tax law says. He just keeps up with what is relevant for today, and we get through just fine. And there's been very, very few mistakes. Hey, stuff happens. Every once in a while, I'm asked to. We don't have this law anymore. We don't have this. This deduction. You got to
And I'm going
come
to be
up with
really
a,
rude, and I'm going to interrupt you right now because I know right where you're going. And I got a great point, because dealing with somebody like the Compliancy group, they even have a document on the changes you need to make to Windows 10 in order to, make it more HIPAA compliant. Turning off some advertising ID. It's like a 5 or 6 page document on what you need to do inside of Windows 10. So it's not just here's HIPAA, here's the government regulations. They take it even further. Here's the real life aspects that you need to do, boots on the ground to help you with that. So, brass tacks is, I'm talking to the guys in the chat, or I'm talking to anybody that's listening. There's a lot of companies that say we can help you with your HIPAA compliance. And I would say that's probably true, but the partner I chose based on the research I did was somebody that said, yeah, you can help me with the letter of the law, but I also need some real world help in the implementation of what I need to do with boots on the ground. And is it somebody that I could say, okay, I've done it. Now here's a number you can call to do it since you're my customer. So make sure whoever you're evaluating, I found that in the Compliancy group, but make sure whoever you choose, you have all those levels to engage with. Sorry, Jeff, I interrupted. Go ahead.
no, that's perfectly fine. You said it much better than I could have said it anyways. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's easier to use somebody else that does this for a living and knows this stuff and keeps up with it versus just trying to figure it out with all the things that we have going on a daily basis ourselves. You just can't keep up. It's that, I love to say that technicians were fairly intelligent, and I believe that, but we only have so much brain space to be able to keep all this information. And again, the same reason I'll do my own taxes is the same reason I would involve somebody that knows the HIPAA law and knows how to give me the stuff that I need so that I can just go through the process and feel good about providing the services without having to actually think about coming up with the services, etc.
Well, there's an easy answer to that question, in my opinion. One, it's the same reason our customers hire us. It's because we're better at doing what we do than their cousin who knows a little bit about computers. We talk about all the time that it's not just setting it up and getting it to work. There's a lot more work to do after that. It's also, if you listen to a lot of shows, we're practitioners of what we do. At least in my practice, there's so much going on. I'm an IT generalist, and that's what I would consider all of us. None of us are HIPAA professionals from the IT side. None of us are true security professionals. I mean, we cover a broad range of things for our customers. We're excellent at what we do, but you have to be smart about when you need to engage somebody that's smarter about you about a topic that's more important. So that's when you bring on somebody like the Compliancy group or another asset to your group to do that.
Yeah, another thing that, and this is a little bit of a self plug. What we found was when we made the transition from being auditors to taking the tool and making it available as like QuickBooks as an end user tool, we saw much greater value. And when I say value, to the end clients, because now we shifted to having been in the business, and our history was we were large scale auditors. Because one of the concerns I have is the technology in the industry on a whole was really folks that built the security audit tools around, and they were not involved with the law to begin with. Okay, so what happens is the things that we learned when we went from going from auditors to providing a tool that is both for the auditor and the end user is that if you don't make it simple for the end user and you don't give them a true tool to be able to manage this on their own, okay, one, they'll never be HIPAA compliant. The concept of compliance is never 100%. There's a culture shift that's required. And that is why we think it's so important for the coaches to spend so much contact time. Yes, it makes it a lot more expensive for me to deliver my product, right, or my solution, or your solution, as you guys are bundling it with your solution, with your products. But in the end, that shift in the way the end user works is where ultimately you're providing much more value to your client, right? So they're much stickier to you. The law mandates all of your services. So now you're not trying to sell somebody on why they need to, upgrade their firewall. You're just saying, listen, because you are dealing with sensitive information, a third party, okay, that is the industry. And by the way, to tout a little bit on us and in the MSP space, we're only been in the MSP space for about 2-3 years. But in the world of healthcare, we've been at this for 14 years. Our seal is an industry standard. So there's 80 some odd medical specialties. Over half of them endorse us as the tool that is mandated for their doctors to use. right? And you see the same thing on the HIPAA compliant hosting in the SaaS environment. So another play that I would say, and to kind of give a little bit of color to this, it is probably in the SMB sector, it is the largest single concentration of clients you can go after of the highest risk, right? So it's not even a matter of, to going to the original conversation when we first started, right? Was that, hey, we want to try something new and see if there's people who like it. If you look at, if you take, let's say, financial services, there's 21,000 registered investment advisors and brokers in the United States, which means in your town, you probably got 3, right? But if you look at healthcare at 5 to 7 million organizations, you most likely have 300 in your town, right? So even you discount the folks that aren't, they're not going to outsource for whatever reason, or they're not the right target for you. It is such a large market that just a little bit of effort on your side, you are going after a much more lucrative set of much more lucrative environment to make, to serve. Right. So I see so many MSPs that are like, well, we don't talk to healthcare, usually because they tried, let's say, a chiropractor or a dentist, and they weren't interested. Yet they fail to see such, the lawyers, the accountants, there's so many other markets you can go after. And they are, we have some case studies. One particular organization, an MSP we started with, this guy, Carlin Bradley out of Tennessee. We've put 20 new clients into his organization, and his average ticket, is 175 per seat. Okay. And he's serving small 10, 15, 30, 20, 30 person offices. They're not these large hospitals at all. Right. So, a 5 to 10,000 MRR per month client with a good, strong margin is not exactly something we want to shake a stick at.
That's awesome. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll continue on in our topic. Our show today is brought to you by FreshBooks. Small business owners, it's time to be honest about how you feel with dealing with your day-to-day admin work. Admit it, you can't stand it. It's a total grind. I'd agree with that. Nobody likes admin work. The truth is, over 5 million small business owners felt exactly the same way until they discovered FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the dead simple cloud accounting software that's transforming how small business owners handle their paperwork. You can use FreshBooks to create and send an invoice. Literally takes about 30 seconds. I like fast. And there's no formulas or formatting. It just perfectly crafted invoices every time. Your clients can pay you online. Everybody likes to get paid online. It's quick, it's fast, it's easy, right? Which often means you end up with getting paid a lot faster. There's a super handy deposit feature so you can invoice for a payment upfront when you're kicking off a project. FreshBooks can even show you whether or not a client has looked at the invoice you've emailed. So when you have that awkward conversation and say, hey, did you get that invoice I emailed you? They open it up and they go, no, I didn't see that. Oh, really? Oh, it said you opened it up at 2 a.m. Thursday night. Oh, yeah, I see it. This is only a fraction of what FreshBooks can do for you. You owe it to yourself to feel the full effect of FreshBooks on you and your small business. For a 30-day free trial, just go to freshbooks.com/podnuts. Enter podnuts in the How Did You Hear About Us section. All right, let's go ahead and go back into our topic. We're talking about HIPAA and doing it right. And we've got Mark Haskelson from the Compliancy Group, and obviously John Dubinsky holding down the fort there. So, John, do you have any questions or anything that you had in the beginning that maybe we have not brought out yet that the audience would want to know the information that Mark would have for us today?
Well, I guess I would start at the beginning. I mean, the topic is so broad. I mean, I would tell people to go back to our HIPAA 101, and I'll put a link in the show notes to that, because I think that would be a perfect primer to lead up and make guys like us realize that you need to engage with somebody like the Compliancy Group. So we've got some questions in the chat, and this leads in my question to Mark. I know this, and I put some links. I'll have a ton of links to your site, Mark, in the show notes. But how do MSPs, resellers like us engage with the Compliancy Group? How do we get started? And can you speak to anything, maybe to the costs, or, I know there's different ways to engage. When I first got started with the Compliancy Group, it was there were a couple different options on how I could start it. If I brought some clients on, what my price would be. If I just kind of put myself by myself and then brought on clients, all that kind of stuff. So I know we don't need a whole diatribe on all the options, but there are a lot of ways to get started. Either just get into HIPAA and get started. I know there's a lot of flexibility where I could move between these things. If you had a bunch of customers in tow, that would change the price, so on and so forth. So I'll let Mark speak to that before I babble on too much, but got some questions in the chat on how to get started in the pricing.
All right. So there's two paths, which is to keep it simple, right? One is if you already have healthcare clients, you need to be compliant. You can engage directly with us. Most likely your preferred way would become a reseller. And in the case of a reseller, what you're doing is you're signing up for our service. We are going to make you are going to go through the exact same experience that your clients are going to go through. You're going to be working with a coach. As you were saying, we can be meeting every week. We can be meeting once a month. But ultimately, it's going to consume about 20 to 30 hours of time, okay, for somebody. Doesn't have to be the owner. You can delegate it to somebody else. But that's how we make you HIPAA compliant. While that's going on, we're also going to be training or working directly with you. And this is where how the economics can be very compelling. Our belief is our goal is to try to help you sign 5 new clients up in the first 90 days. Okay. So if you have existing clients, that's the easiest. Okay. So we are not here's some nice marketing material. Good luck. My sales team, my marketing team, they are there to work directly with you to do demonstrations, webinars, marketing campaigns, provide lists for you. But the best thing we can do is get on the horn with your clients. You look smart because you're bringing in an industry expert, a well-known documented firm for being leaders in this arena. And our job in that is to educate. So we explain to the client what is HIPAA. It's not a matter about our product. This is about why compliance and security are so interrelated and why this is so critical to do. Okay, that is one path. The second path is just to become a referral partner with us. So if you're like, listen, I don't know, I don't have any healthcare clients. I just want to try it. I want to see how this sounds. Listen, you can just get us on a call with somebody who's either they may be a client, they may not be a client. If they sign up, we'll give you referral commission. So it does not require any effort on your part unless you want to. Now, if you do choose to go down the path of becoming a reseller, we believe very heavily in education. So every month or just about every week, we're doing some sort of demo or training. So feel free to come and see it before you put your money down. But the model is for $3,000. There's a one-time setup charge. We are going to give you a seal of compliance, which gets you into our HIPAA Alliance marketplace, which means we have 70,000 clients that we now can refer directly to you. And when I mean refer, I don't mean just, hey, why don't you go talk to John? I mean, we have already spoken to them. They are already engaged. We have told them that they are not capable of doing their own security risk assessment. If you want, we can actually even position a number for you. If not, we are going to say, usually what we say is, listen, this is probably $1,000 to $1,500 cost for them to use our tool to do the audit that was required. And then obviously whatever remediation work that's mandated, encryption, backup, secure messaging, and monitoring auditing will be priced by them. Okay. For your end clients and how you bundle this into your pricing is really, we've seen many different models. The most successful partners we've seen, kind of the way you're doing it is, if you are in healthcare, this is a complex law with some serious teeth. You are a known target in the world of cybercrime. So that the only way I can help you is to agree for you to use all of the tools that I'm going to put together for you as one solution. So you're not getting into whether or not you recommended one firewall or another. You're saying, in order for us to protect you properly, you are looking at, and your geography may make some differences, but let's say, in a more rural spot, it's 150 a seat. Okay, in the larger urban centers, a little more competition, 175 to 225 a seat. Most of the folks are taking at a minimum, are taking our cost. And so to explain our model is, if you are a single location, less than 25 employees, it's $200 a month. That includes everything, and I could go into what everything is, but truly it is everything you and your client need to be compliant. With a coach that's going to hold their hand, this is a tool for both you to do the audit and your client and their employees to log in and keep track of everything. And although if I didn't say this, I'm going to be a little bit on the braggart side. There are a lot of ways to be HIPAA compliant, but one of the reasons why we have such a position, the position we have, and our seal is so coveted is we're involved in 2 or 3 different audits on any given month, okay, both federal and state. 13 years, 70,000 plus clients. We have never, ever had a client fail an audit. In each case, we were always able, we don't help them break the law. We help them in each case always be able to prove that they made a good faith effort. Because everyone gets hacked. It is no longer, to your earlier point, it is only a matter of time before you will have a breach. What we're trying to help you and the MSP provide is that you've done everything possible. You've done a good faith effort to prevent that from happening. Therefore, you don't get fined. You don't get corrective actions. And even a little simple one is, as long as you can prove you're encrypted, even if a laptop was stolen, there's no breach to report because great. They stole a laptop. They can't use the data, right? The hard drive is useless to them. So hopefully that helped. But all you got to do is call us, come to our website, sign up, and one of my team will gladly help you through the whole process.
Well, and it sounds like we talk about this often on the show of eating your own dog food. So obviously the education is first, getting yourself compliant like John's talked about. And once you're compliant, you can take that and spread it out to your customers also. I mean, if you're doing this type of stuff, I think it's foolish not to engage in services of companies that are experts at something that we're not. So there's that. John, any other questions that you want to?
No, I mean, one of the other big things I would point out is going through the compliance process with Compliancy Group. It's also like just good training. So like you're getting training on your firewall solution, you're getting good training to bring information to your clients so that you become a subject matter authority, which kind of then makes them realize that, wow, we need to be doing something else as well. So, you're paying for something that you need, but you're also paying for basically training. So whether, just like if you're paying for Office 365 training or G Suite training or firewall training or going to get a cert, I mean, you're basically getting a certification. You're getting a HIPAA compliance seal from a reputable company that you can then, we have it posted on our site. So, you've now become a subject matter authority to bring that information to your clients. So, I think that's another big, not only a sales tool, but something else that, you become a subject matter authority, which makes you different than, trunk slammers or somebody else that says, hey, we're security guys. Something like that. And an easy thing that the Compliancy Group has on their website too, that I have a link to, is they just have a little compliance checklist that you will probably get a pop-up if you visit their site that just goes through all these things. It's just an easy thing that you say, look, I didn't even make this. This is a company that does this, that you can slide in front of your clients, or that might even be an eye-opener for you that, I mean, it's one page, but adequately exposes the 6 annual audits that you need to see, just all this stuff that most people don't even think about with remediation plans and all that. And it's not even a full page. If you take everything out, it's literally about a quarter page, 30 seconds of reading, where if a customer sees that, they should say, oh, and then, get the little pucker effect and say, yeah, maybe we need to be able to take this a little bit more serious.
And all of the sales, marketing, education webinars, we'll do them all for you. So you really, as an MSP, you do not have to become compliance experts, right? But the checklist is a great tool because what it does is it's in plain English. It's, I think, 8 questions. It's not particularly techy, right? It's really just meant for someone to read it and say, wow, I don't half the questions they're really going to say, I never realized that I had to do that. Right. Okay. So, and it's a great way. And I really do believe this. And it's why we have so much educational content. We get 40 to 50,000 unique visitors a month coming to our site just for free educational content. We think it is, and that we make whole programs, email campaigns for our partners to use with their clients. Because we really believe there's so much misunderstanding around this, both compliance and security, that if you take the educational approach, like I said, we'll do it for you. We have a bunch of webinars that are continuing, they qualify for national continuing education, etc. it makes one, it exposes the areas of misunderstanding, but two, it makes all of us, puts us in a position where we are helping our clients, right? And will all of them sign up with all of us? Who knows, right? I can't say that. What I can say, and I think it's the way, if you think of the way, we all go online and we Google and we look for things, the people who gave you good, honest, useful content are the people you're going to want to work with, right? So we work really hard to make sure, yes, you can come to our site and do it. And there's a whole bunch of affiliate tracking, so we make sure your clients are protected. But we really want to give you these whole programs that you can then bring to your clients, or where my team will gladly get on the phone and do it for you. We do. I do 20 to 30 webinars a month on top of 5 to 7 speaking engagements. So that's all I do is run around trying to educate people.
And I don't want to breeze over something Mark said too, that most people didn't realize that, Compliancy Group gets you there, but once you're there, Mark, they're there to help you if you did have an audit too.
Oh, true.
So it's not just, hey, we got you there, thanks, see you later. If problems happen or questions arise, they're also your resource to help you through that as well. So it's a full circle.
It's one of the big concerns we hear is a lot of folks are like, listen, I'm afraid of healthcare because I either have to, there's either something I don't know. I don't want to look stupid in front of my client, right? Two, is there a liability? Am I going to have to invest a bunch of time and money and effort to do this? So our goal is to take all of that off the equation, off the table. If you have our seal, and this is a really big deal, yes, we do the response for an audit. Okay, it's why we've never had a client fail an audit is, we were on a call with HHS last week because 30% of the time it's the vendor who caused the breach. And this was a case where it was an EHR provider had a ransomware attack, which then had caused the breach for the doctor's office. And because we could prove their compliance, and this is what we do, it's just the nature of the way we serve our clients, whether it's the MSP or the end client. And this is actually a gift that keeps on giving because the law requires a doctor's office before they share their data to get a technical due diligence, okay? So it's a great opportunity to do that through the guard for the MSP to say, look, I care about you and you should, I am going much deeper into solving your problems. I'm gonna make sure that billing company is gonna protect your information properly and not be a vulnerability to you. So yeah, we do respond, and never having had a client fail an audit is a really tall order. We work very hard to protect that.
That's awesome. Well, I can't think of anything else that, John, unless there's anything else you want to ask, or Mark, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and let's think about our lasting thoughts, and let me take another quick break, and then we'll get those lasting thoughts and move on to the end of the show here. If you would like to support this show in what we're doing here, bringing you the information that we bring on a regular basis, we hope, especially with all the people that are watching and listening on a regular weekly basis, that this is bringing you some value. I would ask you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And we have 2 new Patreon supporters, and it is Scott McFarland and Kenneth Litzy. I want to thank those guys for joining up. And what that will do is that will give you the opportunity to get involved in a secret Facebook group that nobody can see on Facebook unless you're a part of the super secret Facebook group. And what this is a bunch of IT business owners that get together, and you can ask a question. And it doesn't matter how simple the question is. Again, we're all experts at certain things, but we're not experts at everything. And we all had to learn from either our own experiences or somebody else. So it's a safe environment where you can come, you can ask your questions, you can help other people solve their problems with the questions that they have. And it's a great situation to be in, and a nice, safe environment to be a part of. And we've got about 104 people over there right now, which is awesome. And we've not had to kick anybody out yet, because I've got my soldiers on on the team there, Paco LeBron and John Dubinsky, Dubinsky.
I mean, we just met, Jeff, so I mean, I can't expect you to know my name yet. So that's right.
And so these guys will kick you out of the group if you're not nice. That's basically our only rule. Be a human, be nice. But this is a great group that you can be a part of. It costs you about $1 a show. I only charge when I actually do a show. It's $4 or $5 a month. Yeah, skip a Starbucks coffee, you'll be fine. and that will give you the opportunity to have great information on it at your fingertips on a regular basis, which I think is great. I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. I appreciate what each and every one of you is doing, and it helps make the show what it is, and pays the bills, lights, camera, action, all that kind of stuff. So, anyways, appreciate that. All right, so John, I'm going to come back to you again. Is there any other things that you want to make sure it was touched on before we end the show off here? Any of the information that you feel is important?
Well, a lot of the times we've talked about getting together, maybe having a HIPAA meetup. So a lot of us that were concerned and all that kind of stuff could have a little HIPAA discussion and how we're doing it in our MSP or our businesses and all that. And before I chose the Compliancy group, I did what I think is a lot of due diligence, and spoke to a lot of people about it. And probably the main reason I chose, I sound like an attaboy or whatever for the Compliancy group, but really one of the main reasons, and I'll go back to TechCon Unplugged and all that, and I don't know if Paco or whatever has reached out to the Compliancy group to try to sponsor anything yet. But the reason I chose them is when I spoke to Joe and some other people over at the Compliancy group, it really felt that they were interested in, okay, let's get you HIPAA compliant. And then great, if you want to be a reseller too, and we can work with your clients, that's great. But there was never this pressure for me to give me all your client lists and let's do all this. And we want, they were more interested in my client list and all that. And then, so it was very comfortable for us to get started with them. There were a couple options. I could start one way and I could end up another way. At one point I told them, hey, look, I'm too busy right now. Contact me in 2 months, and they did, and we did a little mailing, with some other stuff. So it was just easy, no pressure. They took good care of me. When I dealt with when we were going through the compliance aspects of it at the beginning, the person we worked with was very easy to deal with and answered my wife's questions, who had no HIPAA knowledge. So, I'm trying to give an infomercial here about the Compliancy group, but the important thing is that when you're dealing with this, keep in mind that your MSP has a lot of responsibility legally, just best effort wise, that, if you get involved with this and you don't have your ducks in a row, you might find yourself in a little bit of trouble. So be careful on where you're treading without having the appropriate support before you go in, I think would be the correct word. And I found a great partner. We're looking for, like in TechCon, community-based people that were very interested in working with us. But it really felt like, and it still does to this day, that the Compliancy group was more worried about me. And then, hey, obviously they're a business. They want to sell. They want to get new clients too. So, just like we do. So they were interested in helping me build my business through maybe referring to them. And that was great too, because even in the aspects where we did that, it was very low pressure. Even to my clients, they jumped on and say, hey, we can do a 30-minute little webinar, just a little introduction. And maybe they don't know about HIPAA. Maybe we just talk about HIPAA first. And then once they realize what's going on, then we can talk about the Compliancy group. So, that's the kind of partner I'm looking for, and they really fit me there. But if I encapsulate everything I just said over the last 25-minute diatribe I just had, is you want to pick a partner that supports you and then supports your clients. And just be careful with HIPAA, because legally and all that, you do have some responsibility that can get you into trouble if you tread where you're not sure. So that would be my 2 cents.
Great wrap up there, John. All right, and Mark, and I'm going to hand it back over to you. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover? Any lasting thoughts? Any other information that the people need to know?
Well, I'll add a little bit on to what John was saying about your clients. Okay, because when I first got involved with the MSPs about 3 years ago, I was asked to be the chair of the advisory board to CompTIA. Okay, and the restructuring of CompTIA is what I did. And in that, I got exposed to a bunch of MSPs. And when I said I'm a direct business that sells compliance tracking solutions, they said, well, then the MSPs will never be able to do business with you. Okay, and what I explained to folks is, we already have, as the endorsed solution for so much of the market, we're already talking to your clients. What we want to do is be involved with you in educating your clients on why they need to be both compliant and secure. And I think doing that together is where, let's say, we're solving, or we're protecting the end client much better. We're solving the bigger problem, and where it is more lucrative for all of us. Because one of the things that came up is it was actually Arlen Sorensen from HTG who had challenged me that way in a big public meeting. And I said, Arlen, I said, here's the only thing you don't understand. I said, I already have your clients. Okay, I'm just trying to help you sell more to them. Right, and the reason being, for example, and this is part of why we try so hard to help our partners is you need to be protected, etc., all the law stuff. But there's a great opportunity to leverage what is going on in the market in cybersecurity and just how public it is and just how nervous everyone is about it to truly solve the larger problem. In turn, yes, it is more lucrative for all of us. But and on the sales and marketing side, we actually give you our lists anyway. We have 500,000 opted-in healthcare decision makers. So we are usually giving our clients. It is if you take, let's say, Carlin Bradley, where we put 20 clients in, we on average put about 3 new clients into every one of our MSPs. It's not easy, and sometimes it depends where you live, right? Although we're in every state, we can't. We may not have a client in Oshkosh, or we may not have a client that's looking for an MSP in Oshkosh. But we will most definitely ask them and try to push them toward our MSP partners. We think it's critical.
Awesome. Well,
I mean, and to wrap that up in MSP terms, I think Compliancy Group is the organization I dealt with. What do they? They understand that they're making money if they're helping us make money. And by providing a solution that we both need,
that's
period.
Right.
Our customers and us as MSPs.
And in the end, one of the things that I always found amazing in the space, I'm a 21-person firm. Okay, I don't look very different than an MSP, and I truly understand what it's like on a given day to be worrying about payroll and lights and difficult clients, and where to, when we started off here, where to, Jeff, you only have so many dollars to invest, right? And if you do it poorly, it means your family doesn't eat. I think we've all been there. Sorry, honey, you're not getting a new car this year because I need to make payroll. So we are very sensitive to it, and everyone on my team, we try to really have folks that get that and focus on it. But I do think the world of security and the whole MSP community is changing in such a really interesting way that I think there's a lot that MSPs will continue to be critical in what is the way small and mid-sized businesses work in the United States. And I'm proud to be part of it.
Awesome.
Hey, one last question, if I could, Jeff, that just came in through the chat. Mark, just to be clear, it doesn't matter the size of practice. You'll deal with a micro doctor that's got 1 or 2 docs, or just 1 doc, or a small dental office, or 1 or 2 practices up to a big healthcare organization.
We Correct. Have everything from in the business we serve. We have everything from a behavioral health, mental health practitioner who works out of their home, right, to eye doctors that might have 5 locations, to some of the largest hospitals in the United States. To us, the law is the law. There actually is no variability in the way the law is written. It's mandates. This is one of the reasons I think makes most MSPs crazy, is it is considered a gray law, in that because it applies to everything from the smallest of doctors' offices to the largest of tech facilities. What is considered the 7 fundamental elements, I'm sorry, it's the only techie thing, guys, on my geeky side, on my part, it's called the 7 fundamental elements of an effective compliance program. And bottom line, when auditors come in, they don't ask for the latest scans. They ask for some very basic things that if you have them, the auditors are very happy and they move on. If you don't have your paperwork, and remember, you got 10 business days to come up with this. So if you're not locked and loaded, you can get into trouble quick. But yeah, so to us, it does not matter. It's one of the reasons why we deployed our compliance coaches, was we realized, especially in the small and mid-size, they needed someone to hold our hand, right? They needed someone to be there, if nothing else, just to remind them to do their audit or review their policies or to do their training on a given week or time. And yes, we do that. The system is designed to do it. But if someone really blows it off, they will get a call from one of our people saying, hey, do you need an extra coaching session? We see you didn't finish what you were supposed to do. So we take it rather seriously.
Yeah, and a reminder, guys out there, that we're talking about hundreds per month for a small person, not thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, this is easily doable for any practice. So,
Thank you. I agree.
All right. Well, I think with that, we have covered a lot of great information. Mark, appreciate you coming on. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you give your plug right now. If people wanted to find out more about the Compliancy Group and maybe even get a hold of you, where would they go?
All right. So you can go to our website, compliancygroup.com, and it's with a Y. Okay. So remember that Y is there. What I would say for any of your listeners that decide to join us, they can email me directly at Mark, M-A-R-C, at Compliancy Group. And if they mention that they were on the broadcast today or watched the broadcast, we will give them a $500 credit. So you guys, thank you for letting us kind of spread the word, and hopefully we can make it a little more cost effective for your followers to join us.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
that's awesome. Thanks, Mark.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And John, if people want to find out where you're at or what you do, where would they go?
Well, they need to go to the CRP group at Facebook, even though I hate Facebook, Jeff. We still get
with you,
2020, we're going somewhere else. But anyways, guys, I know a lot of us have talked one-on-one about what we're doing with HIPAA. There's still a lot of other resources, Donna Grindle, David Sims. I encourage you to look and listen to their podcast because they're preaching the truth. And Cardin does good work too, but Compliancy Group, I've got a bunch of link in the show notes. So if you're listening to this show, jump into the show notes and see that. I've got the stuff to their webinars. You don't have to go to a live one. They've got recorded ones, how to contact them. They have a ton of HIPAA resources. We've all talked about getting some sort of checklist or something like that. There is no magic checklist, but there are a lot of checklists to help you get closer to what you need. I got Mark's email address in there. But I can't stress enough, whether it's the Compliancy Group or somebody else, you need to find a good partner to get in bed with on this one. We as MSPs love to get in bed with a vendor. So we get in bed with a firewall vendor. If you're dealing with the medical industry, this is no different. You need to get in bed with somebody. My recommendation is to choose the Compliancy Group. So, I'm not getting any, full disclosure, I'm a customer. They're not sending me to Barbados because of this podcast or anything like that. So I'm getting my usual pay for doing the podcast. Jeff, we need to discuss that later.
I'll gladly buy cocktails when we're all together.
Amen. High five. So I'm getting paid with gin and tonics. So that's good enough for me. But, to protect yourself, to protect your business. I mean, obviously, Mark talked about an MSP getting fined. That can happen, and just to make sure that we're doing things the right way for both ourselves and our customers, this is a great place to start. And if nothing else, it costs you nothing just to call and get some information, period. If nothing else, it will be highly educational, and I encourage you to do it.
Appreciate that. That's a great information. And as always, thank you, John, for taking the show notes and making sure that all that information ends up in the podcast because people can easily get to where they need that information. So that's cool. All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.